Welcome back again. Today we will continue our lecture on ESL vocabulary. Pyramid discussion. A pyramid discussion is an activity in which learners form progressively larger groups as they carry out a speaking task. This usually requires each group to reach agreement before joining another group. These types of discussions are useful for practicing many functions like agreeing and disagreeing, negotiating, and more. Questions of degree: fast/slow, hot/cold, big/small, happy/sad. Rate of speech: a teacher should ask a question and patiently wait for a student to answer. An ELL student not only has to come up with the correct answer but must use or try to use the correct English. Reader-based writing is done for an external audience, e.g., writing email and publishing work on the internet. Rebus principle: the use of a pictogram for its phonetic value, example, using a picture of a bee to represent the verb be or the sound, be. Recast: the repetition with corrections of a child's utterance by an adult. E.g., the child says I hold the rabbit, and the adult corrects by saying, you mean you held the rabbit? Recursive rule: a phrase structure rule that repeats its own category on its right side, example, VP VP PP, hence permitting phrase structures of potentially unlimited length, corresponding to that aspect of speaker's linguistic competence. Reduced speech: the perceptual saliency of spoken English is often reduced, creating variation in the way English is spoken in very formal contexts from more naturally occurring English. Reduced forms refer to basic elements of this naturally occurring spoken English, integral and pervasive elements of spoken English, that are seriously neglected in both research and materials development. Reduced forms occur in all registers and styles of speech with pragmatic and syntactic constraints inherent in their use. E.g., what ya doin'? Reduced vowel: a vowel that is unstressed and generally pronounced as schwa in English. Redundancy reduction: method of reducing information where, as far as possible, only the non-redundant part of the information is transmitted and/or when two languages come into contact within the same psycholinguistic environment. The speaker is forced to solve the duplication of rules and functions in two languages and simplify the cognitive overload. Redundant describes a non-distinctive, non-phonemic feature that is predictable from other feature values of the segment. Example, plus voice is redundant for any, plus nasal, phoneme in English because all nasals are voiced. Reduplication: a morphological process that repeats or copies all or part of a word to produce a new word. Example, wishy-washy, teensy-weensy, hurly-burly. Also used in some languages as an inflectional process. Example, Samoan maneo/mananeo, he wishes/they wish. AKA reduplicatives. Reference: association with the object the subject refers to. Reference resolution: the computer algorithms that determine when two expressions have the same referent. Example, identifying the reference of pronouns. Reference: that part of the meaning of a noun phrase that associates it with some entity. That part of the meaning of a declarative sentence that associates it with a truth value, either true or false. Also called extension. See referent, sense. Referent: the precise object in a sentence, i.e. a person. The entity designated by an expression. Example, the referent of John in John Knows Sue is the actual person named John. The referent of Raleigh is the capital of California is the truth value false. Also called an extension. Reflexive pronoun: a pronoun ending with self that generally requires a noun phrase antecedent within the same subject. Example, myself, herself, ourselves, itself. Regional dialect: a dialect spoken in a specific geographic area that may arise from, and is reinforced by, that area's integrity. For example, a New England dialect is maintained because large numbers of New Englanders and their descendants remained in the area. See social dialect. Register: a stylistic variant of a language appropriate to a particular social setting. The language, tone and words that some speakers use depending on the situation and/or company. Also called style. Register tones: in tone languages, level tones, high, mid, or low tones. Regular sound correspondence: the occurrence of different sounds in the same position of the same word in different languages or dialects, with this parallel holding for a significant number of words. Example, AI, in non-Southern American English corresponds to a in Southern American English. Also found between newer and older forms of the same language. Related opposites, a pair of antonyms in which one describes a relationship between two objects and the other describes the same relationship when the two objects are reversed. Example, parent/child, teacher/pupil. John is the parent of Susie describes the same relationship as Susie is the child of John. See gradable pair or complementary pair. Relative to necessity. According to proponents of content-based instruction, one of the two basic principles used is relative to necessity. This instructional concept states that students learn a language better and easier when the student is needing to learn a language to get their needs met. Researching, the stages and processes involved in program management are almost the same as those in curriculum development. They are planning, establishing, monitoring, comparing, rectifying, resilience, the ability to cope with stress and adversity, retreating from discussion. In order to make up for missing knowledge, students use compensatory strategies such as the use of synonyms, circumlocution, and gesturing to suggest the meaning of what they are trying to say. E.g., you know what I mean? Retroflex sound, a sound produced by curling the tip of the tongue back behind the alveolar ridge. Example, the pronunciation of /r/ by many speakers of English. Rhetoric, the study of how texts are effective in persuading readers or listeners to accept the argument presented. Rhetoric patterns, rhetoric is the study of how words are effective or ineffective in persuading listeners or readers to accept the argument presented by the speaker or writer. Rhetorical patterns include classification, comparison, process analysis, and cause and effect. Rhyme, the nucleus plus coda of a syllable. Example, the /n/of/run/rain. Rubrics, scoring aids that contain scoring criteria, the possible levels that can be attained within the criteria, and descriptors that make the criteria and levels precise. Root, the morpheme that remains when all affixes are stripped from a complex word. Example, system from un plus system plus a tick plus ally. Rounded vowel, a vowel sound produced with pursed lips. Example, o. Rules of syntax, principles of grammar that account for the grammaticality of sentences, their hierarchical structure, their word order, whether there is structural ambiguity, etc. See phrase structure rules, transformational rules. Rhythm, one of the features taken into account in suprasegmentals. It relates to the sequence of strong and weak elements in language, such as the patterns made up by stressed and unstressed syllables. SAE, Standard American English. Savant, an individual who shows special abilities in one cognitive area while being deficient in others. Linguistic savants have extraordinary language abilities but are deficient in general intelligence. Scalar, slang words that seem to not be able to broken down into components, but rather seem to go along a continuous line. For example, the words unaware, dense, and clueless can be judged by their slaginess. Unaware not being slang at all, dense more slangy, and clueless being the slangiest of the three. Schooling, the testing part of an education. Second language acquisition, the acquisition of another language or languages after first language acquisition is underway or completed. Also called L2 acquisition. Segment, 1, an individual sound that occurs in a language. 2, the act of dividing utterances into sounds, morphemes, words, and phrases. Semantics, the study of meanings, words, phrases, signs, symbols, and what they stand for. The study of the linguistic meaning of morphemes, words, phrases, and sentences. Semantics is the branch of linguistics that is concerned with the study of meaning as opposed to syntax, which is concerned with the study of the rules for the formation of grammatical sentences in a language. Semantic bootstrapping, children use the meaning of a word to discover a category, noun, verb, etc., inferred from the word's meaning. Example, a word whose meaning is a person, place, or thing would be considered a noun. Semantic features, conceptual elements by which a person understands the meanings of words and sentences. Example, female, is a semantic feature of the nouns girl and filly. Cause, is a semantic feature of the verbs darken and kill. Semantic features of nouns, suffixes such as s, or, and, Semantic narrowing, the process of which a word meaning becomes less inclusive than the earlier. Semantic network, a network of arcs and nodes used to represent semantic information about sentences. Semantic overextension, using one word to describe everything in general. Example, all round things are balls. Well, that is all the time we have for today. I hope to see you next time.